there's no reason to do anything extreme like that. We know how to lose weight as bodybuilders, small, low carb meals, several times a day. And that's the formula. There's no magic behind it. The more you feed yourself, the faster your metabolism. You just don't want to eat a lot of carbs when you're trying to lose weight. I mean, it's not rocket science. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Energy pouches are the wave of the future, and Underrated Muscles Locked In is first to bring it to you. With between 50 and 100 milligrams of caffeine per pouch, you can dial in the quick, clean energy and focus you need on the go. Simple, easy to use. Pop one between your cheek and gum to get you through your day, to get you through your workout. Code RX20, underratedmuscle.com. Get locked in today.
There's a study that shows that today's 20-year-olds just have less testosterone in them than their fathers, grandfathers from the 80s when they were in their 20s. We know pollution, microplastics, pesticides used on fruits and vegetables, the antibiotics in farming are the culprit. I say this as a natural, I eat clean. I just don't get bigger and stronger and still hold some fat around the midsection. I can't even grow a beard now in my 30s. Now, the beard part, I guess, theoretically could also be genetic, but what do you respond to that as far as all these factors being around as far as having correlation to reduced testosterone for men in their 20s and 30s today?
Right. Number one, I think that when I was younger, I don't think they never tested for testosterone. Because I remember seeing these kids in school. You knew the kids that didn't have high testosterone. They were not good at sports. They were kind of like soft looking. I think that it's pretty much always been pretty much the same. I don't think testosterone levels have changed in young people. Maybe as we get older, it's changed. But I don't think in young people that the testosterone levels are lower. I just think that they never bothered testing back then. And now that everyone tests everything because we have it's more accessible, it's cheaper. We're aware that could be a problem. Because I know guys that became bodybuilders, and when they did they looked like soft. Look at Evan Centopani. He was like a soft, mushy, fat kid. And he started taking a cycle of steroids, and all of a sudden, the guy's body transformed. He probably had low testosterone too. Who knows? So it's like the person who says that they can't lose weight, and then they're depressed all the time, and then they take some T3 on their first contest diet, and all of a sudden their whole body changes, and then they find out that they had a thyroid deficiency. They just never got checked for it. So I think that a lot of it was undiagnosed low testosterone in men. And I don't think that they would have treated them anyway back then. I just think that wasn't something that they do. People are more aware of it now. And that's why, because I can tell you, my son's testosterone is very high, like mine is. He's aggressive. He's lean. He's got muscle. He's athletically inclined. I don't have to test his testosterone. No, it's high. And mine was like that too when I was young. So I think that there's a genetic component to it. I think we're just more aware nowadays of things like that. Now, the idea that girls are going through puberty younger, I think that has more to do with like the plastics and the estrogenic compounds in the meats that we're eating and stuff like that, because that makes more sense, because estrogen can definitely induce, the early onset of menstruation and stuff like that in women. But I don't necessarily know if it's suppressing men's testosterone. Now, why are men's testosterone lower in their 20s? Once again, because they're actually going and getting tested and finding this out. The good thing is that there's something we can do about it now. We can give replacement therapy, and we can supplement them so they don't have to suffer, whereas maybe in the past they did. And so I think knowledge is definitely power in this circumstance. And the fact that I always tell people, diagnostic testing is your best friend. Okay? Don't just guess. Go and get blood work. Don't just guess if you think you have a heart issue because everyone in your family died of a heart attack. Go get a cardiac CT scan. It's so easy nowadays. You didn't have that 20, 30 years ago. We have it now. And I think that knowledge is power.
In a 4 to 6, and it says 4 to 6, I'm assuming he means 4 to 6 week mini cut, would you lower your GH to 3 IU and save the higher doses for growth phases, or keep it high throughout all phases?
Yeah, I only recommend 3 IUs of GH max for people who are dieting for competitions. And you know what? I have no problem with them taking 2 IUs as far as males go. For females, usually 1 to 1.5 IUs is more than adequate if they want to use GH at all. I just think that you're wasting your money if you're taking more than that on a diet type of situation. Now, off season, you could use a little more. Once again, but there is diminishing returns. Once again, I think 4 or 5 IUs a day is plenty. You know, I know, yeah, there's some people that do 8, 10, 12, but I don't necessarily know if those guys are actually using real GH. And if they are, I think it's overkill. I think you're wasting your money, because I think your liver can only produce so much IGF-1 per day in response to the GH that you're taking. So that if you're taking more than your liver can produce, you're wasting your money at that point, right? So if you take 12 IUs a day and you're still producing the same amount of IGF per day that you did when you were taking 6 IUs per day, you're wasting 6 IUs per day. And that's a lot of money. GH is very expensive, especially real GH. So, you know, less is better over a longer period of time.
So this question is specific to berberine, but the question starts with saying that since you're a big advocate of keeping blood sugars in check,
yeah,
will you make a berberine supplement? I guess I'll expand that to, is there a thought to making a supplement with any sort of herbal supplementation or anything that you feel as if would be a good addition to somebody looking to keep their blood sugars in check?
Yeah. I'm not saying I would never make a blood sugar control product, because I think there is a need for it out there and people want it, you know, and especially for the average person. But for the bodybuilder who eats 6 times, and I've said this a million times, I'm going to repeat it again. For the bodybuilder who eats 6 times a day, minimum, right? Tremendous amount of protein, tremendous amount of carbs, you know, a reasonable amount of fat in their diet. Their insulin output or their insulin requirements from the pancreas is very high. Think about it. The average person eats 3 times a day with maybe a snack. You're eating probably double what the average person eats, and you're doing it every single day. That means your pancreas has to work at least double as hard, if not more, than the average person on a daily basis. A lot of times the pancreas can't keep up. And so blood sugars start going up. Now think about it. Exercise, bodybuilding, which is weight training, cardio, sensitizes your insulin receptors. That means it produces more insulin receptors. It makes you more receptive to your insulin. So your insulin works better than the average person. Yet there are still bodybuilders running high blood sugars in the morning. Why is that? You would think that we would have better blood sugar control. And these are people that are not even using GH. We know GH can be antagonistic to insulin, but forget the guys, take GH out of the equation. Why are regular bodybuilders running high blood sugars in the morning when they wake up? And the reason they're doing that is because the biggest surge of sugar into the blood occurs right before you wake up. It's called the dawn phenomenon. The liver releases a tremendous amount of glucose. But why isn't the pancreas able to keep up with that? When we have the best insulin sensitivity of anyone on the planet, we have low body fat. I mean, no one's insulin sensitivity is better than bodybuilders who do cardio and work out. Yet we're running around at high blood sugars because the pancreas can't keep up, can't produce enough insulin. There's an amount deficiency. There's a deficiency of how much. It's not a sensitivity. So now if you go and take berberine and vanadyl sulfate and try to and chromium, and you try to sensitize your insulin receptors more so you can lower the output, you know, so that you can absorb, your blood sugars can go down ostensibly. Most of the time, it doesn't really, you're kind of putting a Band-Aid on a bleeding, gaping wound. Okay. You're not really fixing the problem. Doctors will give you metformin. And what metformin does is it just suppresses the liver from releasing glucose. So it Band-Aids up the fasting blood sugars in some situations. So all of a sudden you went from 110 fasting blood sugar when you should be under 90. Now you're down to like 95. Okay. Because the metformin inhibits the liver from releasing glucose. It also inhibits the liver from releasing IGF-1, which is not something we want as a bodybuilder, right? So that's not solving the problem that you don't have enough insulin present. So when you start running these high morning fasting blood sugars, my suggestion is to take to supplement with a long-acting insulin. Because just like you would supplement with testosterone if your body doesn't produce enough testosterone, we want to make up for what's not there. Okay, now if you're a fat couch potato, okay, that doesn't do anything all day, and you're running high blood sugars, I'm not going to give you insulin. Okay, I'm going to tell you to stop eating as much, and I'm going to change your diet. And 99% of the time, that fixes a person who's overweight or obese's problem, because they have an insulin sensitivity problem and they have an overeating problem. So that's you can't equate the two people together. Likewise, there is a population of people out there that have insulin sensitivity problems. They don't work out. They're not necessarily overweight, but diabetes runs in their family, and their blood sugar control is poor. Okay, you give those people insulin sensitizing agents like berberine, or even a little metformin, or anything else, that even some of these new GLP-1 agonists like retatrutide and tirzepatide, they help sensitize insulin receptors, and they actually lower blood sugars, and it actually fixes the problem, because they don't have an insulin production problem because they're not eating that much. They just don't have the insulin sensitivity issue. But that's not the case with bodybuilders. So when I see a bodybuilder who's running high blood sugars, I know exactly what it is. It's just not enough insulin.
Question about plateaus as far as fat burning plateaus.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to burn stubborn body fat, lower gut. In my 40s, I train 4 to 5 days, do 45 minutes cardio a day. I eat clean, high protein, low carbs. Should I just do more cardio, cut out the calories? How do you get over those plateaus, the stubborn plateaus when trying to burn fat?
I mean, if the cardio is already high, then that's probably doing more is probably not going to necessarily be better. A lot of times when I see a person stuck, meaning that they're eating really low carbs, they're on a lot of cardio, they're on taking fat burns, and they're not losing, and I'm assuming they're not cheating. I can tell they're not cheating. A lot of times I'll feed them more. You do the opposite of what logic would tell you to do. So I cut their cardio back. Maybe they're doing an hour a day. I cut it back to like 35 minutes. And then I actually give them some carb days. I start feeding them carbs, not huge amounts, but maybe 35 grams of carbs, 3-4 times a day for a few days in a row. And then I might go back to a low carb, for a day. And then once I do that for about a week or two, a lot of times they start losing weight when I'm feeding them more and giving them less cardio. It's like I tricked their body because their body kind of caught on to what they were doing. So it slowed down its metabolism. And then I kind of trick the body by giving them this extra food and say, oh, okay, everything's cool. And it goes back to burning fat again. And then I can reduce those carbs back again and increase the cardio. And then they really get lean. So sometimes you have to play little tricks with the body as well. It does happen, and it doesn't happen to everyone. Look, I've worked with people that consistently lose the whole diet, and I very rarely have to change much of anything. But then there's other people's metabolisms that kind of catch on, and they start, playing these games with them. And I have to trick the metabolism. The worst thing you can do, and I've had this debate with a few people now about fasting, is that for a bodybuilder, these intermittent fasts are the worst. Or I know guys that don't eat for 2 days straight and they just do water diet. I said, when you do that, number one, you shut down your metabolism. You go to zero, okay? And the reason you can prove this, when you don't eat, you get cold, right? The reason you're cold is because your metabolism is zero. It's shutting itself off. Okay, when your metabolism is high, you're sweating all the time, right? So you want to be hot when you're trying to burn fat. You don't want to be freezing cold, because that's pretty much telling you that your metabolism is slow or off. So intermittent fasting and long periods of going long periods without food is not good for bodybuilding purposes of getting lean. People think, oh, I'm going to lose weight if I don't eat. That's not the truth. Okay, fasting is good for people who have destroyed their health. Okay, over 10, 15, 20 years, and they have so unhealthy that you kind of want to reboot the whole body. You want to get rid of the visceral body fat, the excess, subcutaneous body fat. You want to clean out the liver of all the fatty liver that they got. That's what fasting does. It kind of undoes all the damage. But if you eat right on a regular basis, healthy, and you take your fiber and you take your vitamins and everything like that, there's no reason to do anything extreme like that. We know how to lose weight as bodybuilders: small, low carb meals, several times a day. And that's the formula. There's no magic behind it. The more you feed yourself, the faster your metabolism. You just don't want to eat a lot of carbs when you're trying to lose weight. I mean, it's not rocket science here. Why are we going to all of a sudden go from knowing what works, eating a lot and frequently throughout the day, now we're going to eat nothing? It's ludicrous.
Take a couple more questions. The right way to bring up a symmetry. especially in the lats for me. Majorly, I've been doing just left arms exercises for a few months, but is that the right way to go about it? Front lat spread, literally only right side visible. So your best advice in terms of improving symmetry.
Yeah, he didn't say whether he has a lack of muscle on the smaller side, or if the muscle's just not open. Like some people just can't open up the lat properly because they have, maybe they need to get some massage, deep tissue work because the lat is stuck. A lot of times that's the case. Most people have good symmetry or balanced symmetry. One side's always a little better than others, but if he has a noticeable, lack of lat on one side, it could either be that he's not opening his lat properly because maybe he doesn't know how to, or because it's kind of glued down with scar tissue, or there could be a nerve issue that he's got like a pinched nerve and it's not able to innervate that area properly, so it's not being trained. There is the last possibility, which he's suggesting, is that maybe it's just smaller and he doesn't have any damage to anything. It just happens to be a smaller lat. Maybe he in the past has always used the one side more and dominated, and now he realizes he's out of whack. If that's the case, yeah, I would try to do some. What I do is I would always, even if you're doing like pull downs with this two arms at the same time, always focus on the weak side. So never pull from the other side. The other side is going to work no matter what because it's the stronger side. Always focus on that. I used to do that with a leg. I had one leg that was a little bigger than the other. We all do. And when I would squat, I would only think about the smaller leg. I would lean into that side. I would push from that side. I didn't even think about the good leg because I knew the good leg was going to work no matter what. And so it's the same thing. And then if, at the end of your workout, if you want to hit a few extra sets just for that one side, a couple, maybe an extra set of rows, an extra set of pull downs with one arm, that's great. But I wouldn't do like excessive amounts of sets. The key is when you're working the sides together, only think about and mind muscle on the weaker side, and that's going to fix the problem.
Last one about you during your prime. Do you think you ever would have had a career as a power lifter if you had shifted from bodybuilding? I know you're incredibly strong during your peak, but is that something you ever considered, given that you had long arms, long legs, which can be a good trait to have as a power builder? Is that something that you even crossed your mind during that period of time?
I was so scared when I would get under the bar with like 700-pound squats that I was praying. I was like, please just let me not get killed. It's a very scary thing. I give powerlifters huge respect for what they do because it takes a lot of balls to lift some of the weights that they're doing. You know what my problem is? I didn't want to get hurt. So I never lifted a weight that I felt I couldn't handle. And unfortunately, in powerlifting, you have to try to push weights that you're not comfortable handling because that's how you get better. So I don't think I would have been a good powerlifter because I was too vain and I didn't want to tear a muscle and hurt myself, and I just was strong because I was huge, and I knew that if I was strong enough to lift the weight with good form, I should do it because if I don't, I'm not going to make improvements. So I always tell people I wasn't naturally a strong guy, like from the start. I know guys that in high school were benching 225. I could, if I was lucky to get 135, it was a good day. Once I got bigger, I got stronger because I was very controlled with the way I lifted weights. I used good form. I heard Jay Cutler talking about this recently. He said, I had really loose form, and he goes, probably if I controlled the weight, more on the negative and really focused more on how I lifted properly, I probably would have been even bigger and would have had more detail in my physique. And I believe that. The negative is a huge thing. You got to control that weight. Now, powerlifters do control it, but at the same time, they push ridiculous amounts of weight. And to me, that's just too scary. I completely respect watching other people do it, but that wasn't something that I was looking to do.